Hey everybody, Alex from SCADA here. In this video, we're going to do a run through the Ignition Launchpad KPI project, including the client side, what we're seeing here in a browser at the moment, and then we'll dive into the designer to see how it's built and see what you can take from that in terms of design and architecture of our project. So I think the first important question to ask is why a KPI dashboard is important. And then we'll ask the same thing about an OEE project, since those are the two Launchpad project options. I think a KPI dashboard is a good first Ignition project for a customer to utilize because you can show off a lot of the power of Ignition in terms of connectivity to your devices, pulling data and information out of your system, and giving your users actionable insight into your process. With that, and it doesn't require as much development time as building out like PNID style screens to show your process with pipe flows and all of that. And you can still take advantage of trending and alarms, as we see here in the upper right in this project, to get the historical value, and alarm notification, or at least alarm awareness for your operators. So I think that's a good first step. And for companies who have maybe a lot of OEM equipment that have their own HMI panels to actually control the equipment on the plant floor, where you're not necessarily trying to replicate that functionality in Ignition to begin with, because it's not a critical path item. A KPI dashboard allows you to connect to those pieces of equipment and pull data out of them into Ignition as sort of a starting point to make sure your network infrastructure is good. You can connect to everything, and you can actually get useful data out of your system without having to do all the legwork to replicate things you already have on the plant floor. And then from there, once you have the KPI dashboard, you can start to build out what makes sense next, either further integrations with Ignition to control equipment from Ignition, get into reporting, or whatever makes sense for your business from there. So this is the client side. We're open here in a browser. This is the overview page. This is roughly similar to the dashboard page. This gives us the ability to filter by line to see our different object KPIs, see overall daily production, see some various process parameters like ambient temperature and humidity and active power, and then do some case analysis of what we are presenting. This gives you an overview. We'll see here on active power, we have multiple lines. We can filter down to our KPIs. An overview screen would be a good way to see high-level overview data about individual production lines and things like that. Then our dashboard gives us a little more detail into a specific line. We see production rates, coil temperature reading, battery capacity, oil pressure, and then we still see a lot of the same, our active power still shows multiple lines over here. We show the same data here, and then see the same case analysis. This would be a useful way to see more specific data about a given production line. Maybe a plant manager is going to look at the overview to see the health of the overall facility and all the production lines, and then operators on a particular production line would look at this. Maybe you have a TV display with this showing near the production line, that sort of thing. Then, as we covered in the power chart video in Ignition 103, we see that we have, all of our historical data here set up that we can view. We would have to, I guess, update this to look at the correct tags or add them to history for the KPI project to see those here. We currently just have our compressor tags that we're looking at from the Ignition 103 video. And then we also have our alarming screen, identical to what we looked at in the Ignition 103 video with the standard alarm status component here, showing any currently active or alarms that have been cleared and have not been acknowledged. We can go through and acknowledge all the alarms, and most of those will drop off because they've been cleared. So that's a brief run through the client side of things. Let's open up the designer and we'll take a look at how this is built. So let's go to perspective, views, exchange, Launchpad KPI. And we see components, embedded views, and views. Let's start with views. That's going to give us our main overview dashboard, trending, and alarming pages that we had in the client. Let's start with overview because that's the first one that gets opened up. We'll close the property editor for the moment to make this a little bigger. So we see that this is a flex container for our root container. And then within that, we have a left, middle, and right flex container. If we click on that, we'll see, and we'll zoom out just so we can see everything here. Left gives us this left section, middle is the middle section, and then right is down here at the bottom based on the width of the window here in the designer. And you'll see that these are also flex containers. And this one is probably set up as row. Let's go to reset panels. Yeah, so this direction on the root container is row, meaning that everything is going to be aligned in a row, giving us our left, middle, and right. And then our left, middle, and right are set up as columns, so everything is going to stack up on top of each other in that flex container. So this gives us the ability to nest flex containers to build really complex structures without a lot of work on the back end to lay everything out. And this will automatically be managed by the size of the window to sort of scale things accordingly within there. So then if we go under our left root container here, we'll see we have a location flex container that gives us an icon and a label. Then we have some embedded views for our notepad object, daily production, and line KPIs. Those will reference in our embedded views folder. So this gives us a way to build effectively templates in our perspective system that we can pull across into the dashboard or other flex containers without having to build everything on this screen. Now the power of that is, as we see down here on the bottom, we can build this line KPI view and we can tie specific lines to that and select which line we want, either with a drop down or some parameter bindings, and pull up information on a specific line there. Then if we go to middle, we see we have a bar chart embedded view and then a flex repeater. So this is pulling in items from our components sparkline embedded view, which I believe is under, yeah, it's under the components folder. So we're building components to use basically as templates here, and we can pull those across into a flex repeater to build out like this grid of objects here. And if we go to the right, and let's make this bigger so we can see what we're looking at here. Then we have a line chart for case analysis and our active power embedded view here. And you'll see those are both embedded views. And then if we go to the dashboard view, this again is a flex container in the column direction. Up top we have a header embedded view, and then we have our dashboard embedded view. And then if we look at trending, this gives us just a power chart component like we saw in the power charts video. And then alarming gives us the alarm status table component. So those are the basic views that we're looking at. Let's take a look at the embedded views here. These are going to give us in this case, our header. So we're embedding this down there. We'll see this is a breakpoint container. So right now it's showing us the small version. We'll see here we have different icons that are popped up here. And then if we look at the large, this is what we saw in the browser. This gives us our navigation buttons along with the logo and a label. And this is what is used in navigation. And again, that's a flex container, so that will stretch out across the width of the screen as needed and scale everything within that appropriately. And then pop-up gives us a pop-up with a header, power chart, and a table on it. And a dual tag pop-up looks similar with presumably dual tags configured on that. And then if we look at the dashboard embedded view, we'll see that we have our title bar, our overall header, which we saw in the browser, which allows us to select or edit our dashboard. Then we have a dashboard component view that has a dashboard component on our root container. That gives us the dashboard functionality using the dashboard component. And then a breakpoint with a large and small dashboard just gives us a different view. If we're looking, say, on a mobile device, we would pull up this dashboard that allows us to scroll down the screen, or if we're in large mode, select close that. That will give us our overall dashboard. So that would be in a breakpoint container if we wanted to utilize that instead of just giving a big dashboard that would show up on a mobile device and be kind of wonky to scroll through. Then under configuration, we have all of our various widgets and configuration options and things. So depending on what we have selected when we're popping this up, that would give us a particular widget we can configure. If we want to go through and edit a widget, generally this would give us, let's go to see what that looks like here. If we go to edit current dashboard, say we want to edit daily production, we'll click that widget, click the edit. It would pop this window up and allow us to select the title, what's displayed there, and what tag it's looking at. And then this gives us within the widget edit under details, we'll see that we have a parameters flex repeater that looks at the configuration parameter screen. So that would give us a flex repeater depending on how many parameters we have. So that gives us a lot of flexibility here in this widget edit view to say if we wanted to configure 5 parameters on that widget, we would be able to do that through scripting. Then we have a details view. This will give us, if we were to cancel this, edit details here, that'll pop up that window, and that'll give us the dashboard name, the URL path, an icon that we're using, and the size of the dashboard. So that'll allow us to edit what the dashboard itself looks like. If we want to, say, add another row of components at the bottom, we could add an additional number of rows, which would give us more space to add components down there. And then we have, pop-up confirmation message if we need a message to be displayed, and different parameter types to give us options there that we can use in the views. And then under components, this is effectively where our widgets come into play. So if we say, look at the sparkline widget that we are showing on the dashboard, this gives us what we're going to be able to pull into our dashboard as a widget with a title, current value in units, and a sparkline component. And again, if we look at see our text binding here on current value, this is going to look at our tag path property and apply any formatting to that, read that as a tag, and apply number formatting to that. So we get to see what we're looking at here. So if we were to click, say, and edit our ambient temperature widget, we're going to look at this tag here. And then once that's mapped, we would generally go to so in this case, we're looking at view.custom real-time path and format. So if we go to our view, custom properties, our format is going to come from the format string of our real-time path tag. And you'll see here we're doing a indirect binding. So we're pulling in the real-time path, which is what's configured when we populate this in the dashboard using the edit widget pop-up. And that's going to pull in the format string from our tag path. And then our real-time path is coming from our parameters. And that's going to give us a transform that will break that down into whatever we need it to be for the specific tag path. So we can use view parameters along with bindings on things and indirect bindings or expression bindings to populate what we're going to show in here. And then this will show up as a widget in our dashboard. So if we wanted to say, let's close out hourly case analysis, and we want to click here and add a widget, then we can add a sparkline, and we can edit that and pick we want to look at our compressor 1 motor amps, for example. Then we can save that, and that will pull across what we're looking at there. So that gives you a lot of flexibility into building widgets, and we'll go through in the next video and add a new dashboard widget to this system to show how that functions. And again, everything here under components, these represent the widgets that we have available to us in the dashboard component. And we won't go through necessarily all of those, but you can go through those and see, looking at the components on each, how the binding, say for the text parameter on the title label, is set up. We're maybe going to pull in the documentation from a tag that's a property on our tags, or return the tag name if that doesn't exist. So I think if we were to go to Launchpad, say look at our ambient temperature tag here, under documentation we see ambient temperature, which in this case is also similar to the name of the tag without a space in the name, and we have a space down here. So that gives us a little bit better user-friendly way to look at that. And again, there's different, you could put something in a tooltip if you wanted to also be able to hover over that and see something, or you can put it in documentation. And then we see down here we have, see, our engineering units are set to Fahrenheit, so we could see in the client, we could pull those across as a property on our bindings and see what we're looking at. So you want to go through and based on what you're looking at here, if you're looking at the sparkline, go through that and see how things are built up. And this is a very common and I would say typically industry standard way of developing things in perspective and using things to build up from components and embedded views or templates into your overall views that you're showing your end user. And we'll see, say if we open the dashboard view again, that's pulling up this dashboard embedded view. If we click that, we'll see that's coming from embedded views, dashboard component breakpoint. So that if we want to make changes to that, we would come up to that view up here, make changes, and then we have embedded views up here. So if we're looking at, say, our large embedded view, that's looking at the dashboard component view. And then our small is also looking at that. So if we were to come back up here, this would give us the ability to manage what we're looking at there. And again, that would be based on some of the properties that we have available here, like our grow. If we're on mobile, our grow is going to be set to 0, meaning it's not going to grow the size of that flex container. And same with shrink and basis and padding and things. So that'll give you the ability to see how to do some responsive design based on how this project is set up. Now the other thing, you'll notice this looks very different than the standard white background of a perspective view. If we go into style classes, we can come up here and we can see that we have a number of style classes configured for the various components, cards, if we want to look at text, header, dashboard, etc. And say dashboard primary base style, this gives us a color option and font weight. If we want to look at our header, we have various color options. So this gives us a default background color that matches what our background looks like. If we want to do borders and border styles, so you can basically, edit your style classes up here, add new style classes as needed. You'll also see we have a style sheet.css. This gives us the ability to set global parameters for our objects here. So this will populate some of our style classes based on this, and this will typically overwrite what we're looking at. If we made a change on a style class that's referenced here, this may overwrite that. And if you wanted to, say, have dark mode and light mode, you could have different style sheets that the operator can select in the client to pull things up that they're looking at there. And then we also have project scripting here. If we expand this, so we have these 4 project libraries. So let's start at the top with dashboard. This gives us all the scripting functionality that we need to pull in data for our dashboard. So we want to get a list of dashboards and use that to populate if we select dashboard 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever. If we want to encode things, get different configuration options. Maybe we want to do a dashboard copy to create a copy of that before we make edits. If we want to sync or delete, if we want to go back, that will give us some ability to navigate back in our tree using the back buttons, or if we want to build a button in our client. And if we want to show messages or pop-ups or confirmations, we can do that there. As we showed in the install video, when we click the init dashboard or initialize dashboard button, it calls this init dashboard script, and this goes through and creates our tables in the SQLite database and populates those to give us our default functionality in the client. And then we have a browse tags and browse history. If we want to pull those across into the tag browsers in our parameter mapping windows, that will allow us to do that through scripting. And then util gives us the ability to set up opening a pop-up on mobile with different parameters than if we are not on mobile. So that gives us the power to do things globally across the project by calling these functions in our scripting in the various views and components to do whatever we need to do. And I think gateway events and session events are all just default. We'll look at, yeah, there's nothing in our session events here to really be concerned with. And gateway events is, or gateway events under perspective, just has the standard form submission if we're tying into submitting forms through this. Let's see. Then we also have some named queries set up. This will give us named queries we can call from scripting. Let's see, we want to get a widget. We can open that up and see what we're pulling across. So we can call this from scripting or bindings as well to get various widget parameters in this case across the various tables that were created up in our init dashboard and that are also saved in things when we're editing and saving dashboards. So when you're interacting with a database, especially in perspective, you want to use named queries to handle a lot of that. And that gives you a single place to hold all of this query information so that you're not having to maintain queries directly in your code. You can reference these, and if you need to make a change, you can make a change here and it will be applied to the entire project. So that's a basic run through the KPI dashboard project. Again, there's a lot of detailed information within this. If you want to go through on your own time and look at the bindings and things based on a lot of the videos that we've gone through thus far, you should be able to make heads and tails of what's going on in this project. And overall, it's a really well-developed project. It's a first introduction to Ignition as a whole. Thank you for watching and have a great day.